Thank you, Cedarius, and hi everyone. Welcome to this evening's College Football Playoff Selection Committee teleconference. Joining us tonight is Bill Hancock, Executive Director of the College Football Playoff, and Rob Mullens, College Football Playoff Selection Committee Chair. As a reminder to those on the line, we are transcribing and recording tonight's call. We will post the transcript and an audio copy on CUTigers.com shortly after the conclusion of this teleconference. At this time, we'll turn it over to Rob for opening comments.
Thanks, Jim. Good evening. We've finished our fourth week of rankings. The committee ranked Ohio State as the number 1 team in the nation, LSU is number 2, Clemson is number 3, and Georgia is number 4. Here's what the committee was thinking. Ohio State has been a complete team all year, and their win against Penn State impressed the committee. They are ranked number 1. 11-0 LSU, with 3 wins against top 25 teams, is ranked number 2. 11-0 Clemson has been solid, with an impressive series of convincing wins. Georgia also is strong, with 3 wins against top 25 teams. They are ranked number 4. We spend considerable time talking about all the teams and all the rankings, but it's fair to say there are a lot of 2-loss teams, and we talked long and hard about how they should be ranked. We considered their play on the field, head-to-head results, strength of schedule, and we compared common opponents. I'm proud of this committee and how seriously everyone takes his or her work from ranking 1 through 25. I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Rob. We'll now turn the call back over to our operator, Cedarius, for the question and answer segment of this call.
Thank you. As a reminder, to ask a question, you will need to press star 1 on your telephone. And your first question comes from Nathan Bird with Cleveland.com.
Hi, Rob. You mentioned a couple times now about the idea of the complete team that the committee sees Ohio State being. What way is the committee sort of quantifying that? What is telling this committee that Ohio State is a more complete team than anyone else?
Competing consistently and really highly ranked on offense and defense, performing at a high level in both.
Is that some? Do you guys correct that for strength of schedule too? Like how is it relative to who they played? How are you guys measuring that?
Sure, we see it all. We see the full resume, and there are relative statistics as well.
Thanks.
And your next question comes from the line of Heather Dinich with ESPN.
Just to follow up on that, what was the difference, though, this week about Ohio State that put them over LSU? Because you have said that they've been a complete team all season.
Yeah, they have, but they added their third win against a ranked opponent over Penn State, who we have ranked number 10.
I also wanted to ask what the difference in the debate, the conversation surrounding Utah and Oklahoma. What did you guys talk about those 2 teams in particular?
Obviously 2 very good teams. When you look at Utah, the strength of their defense, and then the experience at quarterback and running back. Only loss being on the road to a 22nd ranked USC, where Zach Moss missed the majority of the game with an injury. And then Oklahoma obviously beat number 9 Baylor on the road without CeeDee Lamb. They also have a win over ranked Iowa State, only lost to a close quality K-State team.
And your next question comes from the line of Brian Fisher with NBC Sports.
Hey, Rob, you've had Memphis, Cincinnati, and Boise State kind of all in a row 3 of the last 4 weeks. What are kind of the metrics that you guys have been discussing with those 3 and what's gone into their ranking?
Well, Memphis, has beat Navy and SMU, both who we've had ranked at some points during this year. Only loss to Temple by 2. And obviously we're aware of Memphis's explosive offense. Cincinnati still remains undefeated in conference. Only loss is to number 1 Ohio State. And they've had some close ones here in the last few weeks. And then Boise State, their only loss is to BYU, a 7-4 BYU team in which they did not have their quarterback.
And your next question comes from the line of Barry Trammell with the Oklahoman.
Yeah, Rob, you got a few comparisons throughout the poll of teams that clearly don't have as many good wins, top 25 wins, as somebody that's fairly comparable, but they've been much more dominant than those the teams that do have those quality wins. How do you gauge and judge that dichotomy where you've got a team that's played maybe a better schedule but has not been as dominant as a team that maybe didn't?
Well, Barry, it's never just one factor, right? That's the beauty of having 13 football experts in the room who watch the games, who study it. So that's exactly the kind of conversation that you would have of, who are the wins against, who are the losses against, and then what do you see when you watch the games?
Thanks, Rob.
Yes, sir.
Your next question comes from the line of Brett Hudson with Tuscaloosa News.
Hey, Rob, I was curious just how big the gap the selection committee believes there is between Alabama, Utah, and Oklahoma. Like, just how close are those teams, or is there a discernible gap between any series of two of them?
Well, we spend considerable time talking about, 4 through 6, 4 through 9. And again, we're comparing full resumes. There's not a metric for closeness. I mean, clearly the committee looks at Georgia with their 3 wins over top 16 teams, one of them on the road at Auburn, the strength of their defense consistently every week. Alabama, have been dominant with the exception of the loss to LSU. We're aware of the injuries, as I've mentioned. In Utah, I think I've already mentioned on this call, only loss on the road to a ranked opponent when their running back missed the majority of the game.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Ari Wasserman with The Athletic.
Hey, Rob, you were just speaking about complete teams and using offensive and defensive statistics as like a way to measure that. I was just wondering, does the committee look at offensive statistics and defensive statistics any differently? Do they favor one or the other? Do they view if a team has a weaker defense more favorably than weaker offense, if you follow what I'm saying?
No, we look at them all equally, and again, that's just one piece of what we look at. We do watch the games. Again, we see the full resume. We understand who they've played, the results. So that's just one piece of it. But no, we don't favor one or the other.
And can I ask you one other question? How does the committee view rivalry games? Do you look at them through the same context that you would just a regular game, or do you take that into account when you're grading a team based on performance in one of those?
No, we look at it as a regular game. I mean, obviously, we understand where it's played, whether it's home or on the road.
Your next question comes from the line of David Hood with TigerNet.
When it comes to Clemson and you're looking at the top 4 in total offense, top 4 in total defense, how much does the schedule hurt them? They've got everything else. They've been dominant. The numbers are all there. But how much does kind of that schedule ding them as far as putting them in that 3 spot, behind those top 2 teams?
That's certainly a piece of it. When you look at them, they have been dominant. They're a very balanced team on offense and defense. But the other teams at 1 and 2 have 3 wins over highly ranked opponents, and that is a separator.
And that
Your next question comes from Jarrett Larson with SB Nation.
Hey, sir. I'm just wondering, how much impact do the couple point losses for Iowa State, like how much do those keep Iowa State in the top 25 overall?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of it. Keep who in the top 25?
My bad. Yeah, so Iowa State is number 23 in the latest poll. How much are their 1-point losses to ranked teams such as Iowa, Oklahoma, keeping them in the top 25? Does that matter at all?
Yeah, obviously we watch the games and know that their 4 losses are by a combined 11 points. So the committee's fully aware of how competitive they've been.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And your next question comes from the line of Joey Kaufman with the Columbus.
Rob, can you speak at all to maybe the margin of error like a team like Ohio State would have going into the last week or two of the regular season, where if kind of the gap they have between some of the other teams below them, where if they were to lose at some point, like to Michigan?
No, we don't project ahead. Our job is to rank the teams each week, again, with a clean sheet based on the performance of that week. We do not look ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Your next question comes from the line of Gurang Emek with the Tulsa World.
Yeah. Hey, Rob. Specific to Baylor, you just mentioned the committee starts with a clean sheet based on the week at hand. The Bears jumped 5 spots in your rankings this week after beating what's now a 6-5 Texas team at home. I was curious a little bit about that decision. I expected they might get a bump. I'm surprised they got that big a one, I guess. This is what I'm saying.
Right, understand. That's one piece of it, right? They had a dominant win over Texas from beginning to end. But in addition, the wins over Iowa State and Oklahoma State continue to improve as well as those teams continue to win. And their only loss close to Oklahoma, who moves up to 7. So all that adds in to the clean sheet.
And you have a follow-up question from David Hood with Tiger.net.
Hey, yeah, thanks for the follow-up question. In regards to, I understand that you can't project out, but if you are a team like a Clemson that the schedule hasn't been great, does it make them more secure now that a Virginia Tech team is in the top 24 that, hey, if you can beat them, it makes you a little more secure, not projecting where they are, but yes, that would help the resume down the road.
Again, we don't project. Obviously, there's so many things that can happen. Our job is to focus on the results that we have on the week that we do the rankings.
Your next question comes from Nicole Auerbach with The Athletic.
Yeah, just one more question about Baylor. I'm curious how much of the move this week was, like you mentioned, that some of their wins kind of valued more, or if it was almost like a course correction that maybe they should have been a little bit higher in previous weeks?
Well, the other thing that I failed to mention earlier, too, is 2 teams ahead of them lost. So you have to factor that in. But it was a reflection of their dominant win over Texas, coming off of a close loss to a highly ranked Oklahoma team, and Iowa State and Oklahoma State continuing to be in the rankings.
Your next question comes from the line of Audrey Snyder with The Athletic.
Hey, Rob, I'm just wondering, when you look at the 2 lost teams, what's separating Penn State right now from Florida?
Their wins over Michigan and on the road at Iowa, and they also have a quality non-conference win over Pitt. Both teams have good losses, quality losses, with Penn State's being our number 1 and our number 8 teams this week.
Your next question comes from the line of Scott Robalis with The Advocate.
Yes, Rob. LSU has beaten your number 5, 11, and 15 teams, number 5 on the road. Ohio State beat 10, 12, and 19 in your ranking all at home. And LSU's got a strength of schedule that's 10 points higher than Ohio State's. But in the end, does the committee see those differences as negligible
in terms of ranking the teams?
Yeah, those are. I mean, we would, obviously value LSU's 3 wins over top 15 teams, and Ohio State's 3 wins over top 19 teams.
But they're pretty much fairly even.
Yeah, those are all really impressive wins to the committee, and they each have 3.
And one quick follow-up: LSU went to Texas and played the team that's now 6-5, and they had a home game against Northwestern State, while Ohio State's non-conference opponents are all in the FCS. Does that almost count as a non-game for LSU, having played Northwestern State?
No, I mean we recognize that it's an FCS game. It's highlighted as an FCS game, and we understand what that is.
Your next question comes from the line of Tony Jerdieman with Ozone Communication.
Hey, Rob. When it comes to LSU and Ohio State, I'm wondering how much of a decider is Ohio State's defense in rising Ohio State's number 1?
That's a key piece. I mean, they're a balanced team. Strong on offense and defense. Obviously, LSU has a very strong offense, but to date, their defense isn't quite as strong as Ohio State's.